What is going on, race fans? Welcome back. We are live to discuss lineup strategy for the Dutch GP at Zandvoort. Zandvoort has been on the F1 calendar off and on since 1952, this year being the 36th time it has hosted an F1 race. It is the northernmost race on the F1 calendar, uniquely positioned amongst a sea of sand dunes. It's known for its multiple banked corners, one with as much as 18 degrees of bank, matching the Indianapolis, famous for the Indy 500. But before we get into too many details, some quick intros. My name is Ross. I'm the co-founder and CEO of GridRival. With me today, I have Michael Ursinoli, our CTO, and William Laddie, our principal software engineer. We are missing Ryan Booth today, so there will be a void of Logan Sargent fan club talk that we will all have to fill. As before we get going, excuse me, quick reminder to like and subscribe to the channel so you get all our future updates and future details about shows. On to the quick recap of Spa GP. Can you believe it's been already a month ish, a little bit over? And that was an eventful race. We had to go quickly over some of the salary changes we noticed during Spa. There's 11 drivers that moved up in salary. There was 9 that moved down. The biggest winners for that race, we had Ocon up 2 million, Albon, Hamilton, Leclerc up 1.3, Perez up 1.2, Ricardo and Piastri up 1 million each. Alonso, Kevin Magnussen, Bottas, and Sargent all up a little bit less than 1 million. The biggest constructor winner for that event, Alpine, up 2 million bucks. Losers, George Russell, I think a loser both in salary and post-race penalties, unfortunately DQ'd for being 3 pounds under the minimum required post-race vehicle weight. I'm sure there will be some opinions on the call today about that. It looks like William might have one.
Yeah, first time a winner's been disqualified in 30 years. And the last time it happened was also at Belgium. And
Oh,
that day
really?
was Michael Schumacher getting disqualified because the skid plate under the car was not legal. And it was kind of controversial back then. This is a lot more cut and dry. The rule is the car's got to be a certain weight, at least a certain weight, and his wasn't. And that's not including fuel, which like that's something that people have tried to skirt around in the past, including Mercedes back when they were BA or Honda years ago. They had this whole system where they were using fuel to run underweight. So there's actually a lot of history there. But yeah, pretty cut and dry disqualification.
Yep. So he's down 2 million, ranking at the top of the leaderboard for losses, alongside Nico Hulkenberg, also down 2 million. Sonoda down 1.8. Lando down a million. And then we have Verstappen, Sainz, Stroll, Gasly, Guan Yu Zhou, all under $1 million, quite a bit under actually. Mercedes down 2.3. So there's definitely going to be some value to talk about on the Mercedes side, I think, this week. And then Haas as a team down 1.8 million onto the Dutch GP after a 4-week hiatus. We're back on the counter to close out the summer. And according to our research, no drivers lost their jobs during the break. Is that correct?
Yeah, Sargent still has his job. Knock on wood. I
Knock on
mean,
wood.
he probably doesn't have it after this year, but he still has his job now. And Perez still has his job, and there's been a lot of speculation as to why he might still have his job, or why he might not still have his job. So he's there for now.
Mhm.
He is there. So, on to the discussion at hand. And if you're on the call, feel free to start shooting over questions and we can start answering any that you might have related to strategy, lineup, Zandvoort. Um, so, on to we typically, for those of you who might be new on the show, we usually structure this in a pretty standard way, which is we go over any drivers who we think might be a value add to the team to talk about strategy, and then we'll go over who we might be overvalued. We are happy to review lineup ideas if you have them or specific situations. I think I'll kick off. um, as I was getting ready for the show, my notes from the last show said Russell on sale question mark. And I think that means he's probably even more on sale now with a DNF. Obviously, a 2 million drop in salary. And if I'm just looking at salary charts, he's been, he peaked at 27, just over 27 million. I think that was at Austria, and then last three races he's been hit with some some drops and bad luck. So all the way down almost to the lowest point he's been at the whole season, which looks like was right after Miami in Italy, dropped to just at 22 million. So he's pretty dang close to the lowest he's ever been. Um, what do you guys think? Buy, sell, hold?
I'm in the buy category there. So at 22.2 million, he's a potential race winner. He's potential podium, at the very least, potential top five. I think it's definitely worth considering Russell for your lineup if you don't have him. Also, we like to look and compare at teammates, right? Hamilton's the second most expensive in the game right now at 28.8. So I would for sure be looking at Russell. But my caution to folks would be contract length, right? We don't there could be a short but rapid pace of development in the car over the next few races. So you probably want to be a little bit flexible. So I'm not looking at a 5 racer for Russell, but definitely looking at a 1 to 3 contract for Russell to gain some contract value before we transition into like focusing on full points.
I'm a strong buy on Russell. Probably my strongest buy, actually. So Mercedes seems to be just about there with McLaren for fastest car on the grid right now. Like I think they've surpassed Red Bull at this point, and that minus 2 million is pretty deceiving. If the car were just a couple of kilos heavier, then it
Hmm.
would probably be something more like plus 2 million from
For
Spot.
sure. For sure.
So I think he's way undervalued, and I think he's going to at least podium consistently. And so definitely take him. As far as the contract length, I think we'll get into this as we discuss Max a little bit as well. But I'm at the point where I'm starting to structure who I want at what races the rest of the year. So we've got Zandvoort, Monza, Baku, Singapore, and then we're in the Americas for a while, like Austin, Mexico, Brazil, Vegas, and then Qatar and Abu Dhabi to round it out. And there's a few sprints there. So we want to think about that. We want to think about who's going to be good on the street courses. So Baku, Singapore, Vegas, all street courses. So that is where I'm thinking about contract lengths. And so for Russell, you could get behind signing him for 5 races, which would take you through Austin,
Mm.
which would be the first sprint, like if you don't have him right now. As far as improvements, we'll see how many more upgrades we get from the respective teams. Like I could see Mercedes just focusing on 2025 in the near future because they're not really in a fight with anybody in the constructor points because the start of the season was somewhat weak. Whereas McLaren and Red Bull, I think they're going to have to go the distance if they both
Hmm.
want that constructors title because McLaren's catching up. I just don't see Mercedes getting there though. Like it would take a real implosion for them to catch Red Bull.
Yep, and well, let's segue into Mercedes. I'm probably more aligned with William on terms of contract rank than Russell, so I have him for 5 races. So I think the regret may come with sprints, right? If he ends up being somebody that you want to have, and then you got him locked for a week.
That's actually
Yes.
the that's actually the reason why you won him through Austin.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the first sprint is Austin, and then the next race is no sprint, and then you could sign him up the rest of the season. There will
Yeah.
only be
Oh,
five
got it.
races
Okay.
left.
So you have a gap because I know there's three sprints pretty tightly packed.
Yeah, Austin, Brazil, Qatar, and
Got it.
each
With
of
a
those
break
has a
in
race in
between.
between.
Okay. I like that move. Segue then into Mercedes as a constructor, currently ranked fourth, had the biggest drop. They're at 22.9 million below Ferrari at 24, Red Bull at 24, 24.2 for Ferrari, Red Bull at 24.4, and then you have McLaren up at 27.7. So, very interesting shakeup amongst the top of the grid in constructors. But William, talk to us about what your comments on Mercedes as a constructor, in terms of adding them to your team. How do you think about it?
I would say
Because they're
again,
clearly probably undervalued, assuming they
yeah,
continue to perform how they have the last few races.
yeah, strong buy. Like they could, like any given week, they could double podium right now.
Yeah.
And again, if Russell's car were legal, that would have been a 1-2.
Yep.
So Yeah, I would say, strong buy on Mercedes, strong buy on Russell. They are my buys of the week. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about them. They're fast and
Um,
they're cheap.
the only, and you guys probably have your own opinions here, but as I was scrolling through the driver board here, it seems like there was nothing glaring that stood out to me. Russell was obvious, but the only other kind of major one I was really eyeing is Zhou down at 5.1 million, lowest he's been all season, rock bottom on the board. Um, is he underpriced for a probably? I don't see him as like a 4 or 5 contract pickup, but I'm thinking, even if he has a decent race once or twice, he's going to jump back up above Sargent. The odds that Sargent has a bad, event, I know Ryan would not be happy about the statement, but are pretty high, meaning we're not talking about that difficult of a situation for Joe to end up in 18th, 17th, in which case he would immediately recoup some of the losses he got at the last event. How do you guys see him?
Well, keep in mind there's only $100,000 difference between Sargent and Joe,
Yep.
so it's not a lot. And I like the Williams team. Maybe this is like my own personal bias coming in. I like the Williams team a bit more. So for 100K, I would probably rather Sargent, because I think they both have the ability to be 16th, 17th, 18th, and gain some value. But Sargent has. I'm going to channel my inner Ryan. Sargent's been keeping it together. His times aren't trailing Albon like they used to be. So I think that there is, if I'm going for like, I only have $5.4 million left in my team balance, and I just need to get the cheapest points available. I'm probably picking Sargent over Joe for the 100K.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it's really close for me. So I think Sargent has higher ceiling in terms of finish position. I think the Williams is faster than the Sauber. I do think that Joe has a slightly better chance of getting teammate points on a given week because he's somewhat closer to Bottas. But I would still say Sargent if I'm picking between the two of them.
Cool. Any
I
others
don't
that
think either of them are going to be in the series next year, unfortunately.
probably a safe bet? Any others stand out to you guys as overvalued, either short or long term?
Overvalued?
Under.
Oh, under.
Sorry,
Okay.
did I say over?
You said
Under.
over. Okay.
My bad.
I'm looking through my notes here.
I mean, the leaderboard to me felt fairly on par, which is not always common, and makes it a little bit difficult in terms of finding value.
Yeah, like
But
we're at the point where we fairly stabilized the prices to the pace of the cars.
mhm.
If we want to talk about discounts right now, like Norris is probably a slight discount right now. I think he's
Yep.
better than Piastri, but he's priced below him. And yeah, and also you have Max still number one, and I don't think he belongs there. Like I think he's overvalued, so I think there's going to be room to grow there. I think Max is only being kept afloat because Checo's been so terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh,
I would also agree that Norris is probably the best at the moment, like call it blue chip driver, for the money. And up at the top of the field, top, call it 1 to 3. You usually can't expect to make much money on a contract, and if you can, it's a rare occurrence. And so I definitely agree with that. Actually, I already have Norris on my main team lineup, but I agree he's probably a good pickup if you have a spot for him and can afford it. Let's see, any questions coming through? I have 38 million to work with for 2 drivers. I have Piastri, Leclerc, and Haas. Russell and Ricardo locked.
Piastri, Leclerc, Hulk, and Haas.
Yep.
okay.
Russell and Ricardo locked. So
So-
if you go Norris, that leaves you 11 ish. Yeah, just over 10 actually.
Yeah,
2.3.
and then your problem there is you're counting on Hulkenberg as your talent driver, presumably, which like maybe you like him,
Could go
like
well,
maybe he looks
but
okay in practice, but I mean, Haas is somewhat hit or miss. But yeah, I would say one good driver one mid-wing driver is probably the best bet.
If
I
you go
don't really,
Norris, you're stuck with Bottas or worse.
yeah.
Mhm.
And like looking at the other realistic options, you're probably looking at Alonso next, and then like you get essentially two midfield drivers. As I'm not
Yeah.
sure that I want either Ferrari. Like if I'm, well, you have Leclerc already. I'm not sure I want Signs.
Would you drop signs at
Drop
all?
that's I was saying. He has Leclerc, and I was doing the math on dropping Leclerc,
Yeah.
but he's locked out of Russell, which is so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Leclerc would be 25, so he'd be what, 750-ish to drop.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like you could, like if you dropped, and the other thing I would say is like if we're dropping Leclerc, then Hamilton could be on the table, and like we could do the math. Like maybe you ends up with Hamilton, Norris, and then like Sargent,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that could be really strong.
Yeah.
Like Hamilton and Norris could both podium. They could both win any given week at this point.
Mm-hmm. You also have the opportunity to drop Haas, and use the money there as well, because Haas is 13 million, Alpine's 12.8. So there could be a swap there, or going up for Racing Bulls at 13.8. So there's some yeah. So you might be looking at some drops with that's just calling out to me with Leclerc and Haas right now. Like I don't I'm channeling my inner Ryan. Don't drop anyone until you watch practice. It's been a month. We're all rusty. We'll see what the cars do. But Zandvoort's a unique track, so don't drop anyone until practice. But definitely consider some drops on your lineup to free up money. But then if you're going to be dropping folks, you know what William was saying, you might be in the position where you want to lock in contracts a little bit longer, play the strategy game on your contracts really well, for spending such a high drop fee on Leclerc, for example.
Yeah, and we also have to think, like you said, Zandvoort's a unique track. Monza's also a unique track, and that's coming up next week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like Monza's a place where like you want as little drag on your car as possible. You want all the horsepower. Um, yeah, and you want a teammate who can keep up in qualifying and give you a tow.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, think about that. And then you have two street horses.
Mm-hmm.
Best talent driver. Nestor Medina asked.
Civic said Fernando was talent driver. I really like that. I think Alonso's the best talent driver choice, actually.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, he's been a rare circumstance where one of those guys from really the top 10 dips down. And pretty much historically, anytime Alonso is talent driver, you usually get that opportunity for one event, or if you're lucky, maybe more than that. So I would have to agree, because anything underneath that is, call it, a best of the rest driver team combination. I don't know that there's going to be a better combination this week if you have him.
Yeah, I would say someone posted a question like, "What if Alonso's locked out and for a talent driver?" One thing that I say a lot on the stream, so sorry for all the repeat visitors though, is going off of Ross's note, like under Alonso you have Stroll, Hulkenberg, Ricardo, Sonoda, and then the Alpine drivers, right? If I was locked out of Alonso, I would feel pretty strongly Alonso's the best talent driver pick right now. If you just want to set your lineup right now, but if you can't set your line, if you have some flexibility and you watch practice, also go into the app and look at the league adoption rate for talent drivers in your league to try and gain an edge there. Because I'm not going to say it's a toss up, but it's going to be a little bit harder to predict. And you might get some benefits from a contrarian play. For example, if your league has a lot of Hulkenberg adoption, you might want to look at Stroll, Ricardo, Sonoda, or the Alpines. Conversely, if there's a huge Alpine adoption within your league, you might want to look at the other drivers, because when those kind of gambles work out, it's an advantage that pretty much only you get. If the rest of your team, if the rest of your league is doing the same thing or looks like they're doing the same thing. So that would be my tip on if Alonso's locked out. Look at your league adoption numbers and watch practice, and then maybe do a contrarian play.
Or you can do my favorite ride, which is to jump on the stroller coaster.
Yeah,
It could go both ways.
If I can't have Alonso, and like without looking at practice times, I probably want Hulkenberg or Sonoda.
The stroller coaster is, if you look at salary, he's kind of at a peak. So
Yeah, he might be
take
getting a little overheated. We'll see.
he's pretty high. He's actually at his is he at his highest? Oh, he's just under his highest salary for the season. So you never know with the stroller coaster. I don't think that I think after looking at that chart, I'm be a little bit weary of adding him. But
If you want him to have a good haul, you're basically betting on his teammate having a problem.
well, how do you feel about Hulkenberg? I know we briefly mentioned it, but the thing I've liked about him this season is he seems fairly consistent. He's after the first call it 4 races, he's really just hovered in this like 10th, 11th spot and has been a fairly safe play.
Definitely. Yeah, which like as long as the car has the pace, like as long as you don't see anything insane on Friday,
Yeah,
like I'm okay with Hulkenberg as talent driver.
right. All right. Tony Smith says, any help in my lineup? I have Norris, Russell, Hulk, and McLaren. 2 driver spots, 25 million. Norris, Russell, that's a good start. Hulkenberg, also great. McLaren, great. 25.7. I mean, first of all, I wouldn't be dropping any of those folks. That's a great. I mean, those first 2 should go up. Assuming you've had you probably had a bad spa, but you're going to regain that most definitely. So who do you fill in the gap with? 25 point Hulk. So you got.
I mean,
He
he could do.
says
Oh, sorry.
he says Gasly O'Connor walked out. I've got good news for you, Tony. I don't want either of them anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You could do Alonso at 17.3, and then that gives you some money to play at the bottom. You could definitely get Joe or Sargent, but can you get? Would you have? What was it? 25.7, 25.7, and then what is Alonso 17?
25.7. That's not going to fit. If you're thinking Bottas, that's not going to fit.
He's got 8.4. He can get Bottas.
He can't. That's 8.4.
Yeah.
25.7. I stand corrected.
So you could do Bottas. You could do Bottas Alonso. I don't hate that.
I think that's the best. I think that's the best move on the board based off who he has locked. Because if he wants to go, if he wants to pick a lower mid tier and then a higher low tier, he's going to. He already has Hulk, so he's either going to Stroll or call it the 2 RB guys, Ricardo or Sonoda, and then he's locked out of Gasly or Ocon, so it leaves him like with maybe Alpine. So
like you'd be looking at like Sonoda, Albon,
right.
Which is that's not terrible. It's not super top heavy. The thing with Alonso and one of the bottom drivers is like you're very top heavy.
Yeah,
and
you are.
Maybe Bottas will surprise you, or Sargent or Joe, whoever you go with among those 3.
Mm-hmm. Sonoda did drop. He had one of the biggest drops last week of 1.8. And if you look at salary chart for the season, he's kind of, just middle of his high and low. So it'd be hard if you sign Sonoda to bank on him going up in value. Like, I don't think that would be the reason you'd want to sign him. But yeah, I think your choices are kind of more middle or a bigger spread between Alonso and somebody in the bottom 3, really, which that's the play I think I would make. I think a lot of this also, some of these questions we're answering in a little bit of a vacuum. We don't know anything about where you're at in your lineup, how much salary you have, where you're at, and strategically. I think if you said you're still trying to catch up some other folks in your league in terms of team value, and you maybe think a little bit differently, or for sure at this point in the season, if you're at the 120, 130 team value spot, definitely it's time to start thinking about points over value. Not that you want to ignore value, not that you want to try and add any drivers that you think put you at risk of losing the hard-earned value. But I think that's the reason why I would probably say if you're in that position, I do really like Alonso, and then whoever you think won't crash at the next event. Let's see what's next.
We had we kind of hit on it. Anyone we think is worth dropping. I'll caveat myself because someone shared a note about the Ferrari possibly bringing upgrades, and for sure Andrew Rachant anticipates good results at Zandvoort. Yeah, I've said this before. Is like upgrades aren't upgrades until they work. They're just changes, because all those upgrades are tested in a simulator and a wind tunnel, not actually on the track. So we'll see. I mean, I'm a Ferrari fanboy. Nothing would make me happier than to see a Ferrari on the podium. But I'm going to kind of wait and see on that. So like, if you have Leclerc, you have signs. I wouldn't like blanket recommend a drop. But in that one person circumstance, I think there's better contract cost to point generating value, because you have Leclerc at 25.6, 8 race average is 138 points. Signs is better than that. Norris is better than that, for not too dissimilar of a price difference. So Leclerc is a maybe for me if you have Leclerc.
Yeah, I just don't see them making huge strides. Maybe they're going to bring something special for Monza just because it's home soil and the media will kill them in Italy if they don't. But
Yeah.
that's just pure speculation on my side.
Let's see. Ali, will Ocon continue to improve his performance? I mean, I don't feel like I have an opinion there. And I would say improve. I would argue, both. Well, here's his salary chart for the year. I mean, it's very stroller coaster-ish. So I don't know what you mean by improve. I think he's been kind of a little bit all over the place. They certainly have done a lot better than we expected. The first several races, like I thought they were going to be at the bottom the whole year, but they've pulled it out. So I don't know. My personal opinion is like I wouldn't place a lot of faith there. I don't know what you guys think.
It's been really hard to call when Alpine is going to show up and when Alpine is going to not show up, or when Ocon's going to crash into his teammate and do Ocon things. So it's always it always feels like a little bit of a gamble. But I ran Ocon in the last event, plus 2 million in contract value. I'll take that all day. But I did a 1 race contract because I was kind of betting on that Ocon would show up and have a good performance, and that did work out. But I'm not betting on them long term. I always want to like kind of have 1 foot in, 1 foot out of Alpine, just so that I'm not holding the bag when they're both of them crash into each other. They lose $2 million each, and the team loses $3 million, and I have all three. So that's what you want to avoid.
Yeah, for sure. Good question, probably for William. William, I know you had some opinions about Max and contract length coming into the call. So Will Meany says, even with Max being overvalued, do you still sign him for a long contract because of consistency?
I'm going to say no at this point, and I'm even starting to question how consistent Max can be. We're starting to see him make those mental mistakes like he used to do. Like, remember 21 when he was fighting Hamilton and they were running into each other? Like, I think we're seeing some regression towards that. Like, now that he's got to work for it, like, you're seeing him get a little bit over aggressive sometimes.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, we're into power unit penalties already.
Yep.
Who's to say there won't be more of those? That's a concern. Singapore was an absolute disaster for Red Bull last year on pace, and that could easily be the case again this year. Like, if I'm going to lock up Max, actually, I'm using Singapore as my splitting point. Like, I would want him on cooldown for Singapore. Maybe I don't want him for Baku either, because that is a street course. And then you could have Max roll the sprints on the back ends of the season. Like, anybody who I want for sprints, I don't want them for Singapore. I can sign them 5 races for Austin and then have them for the 3 sprints. And then you might have slim pickings for Abu Dhabi, but this might still be the maximum point configuration for those last 6 races of the year.
Yeah.
So I'm not signing Max to a long-term contract. I'm signing him 2 races at the most, and we'll see how Red Bull's looking after that. And there is another month-long break between Singapore and Austin, which makes me sad. But
I know.
it's like there might be time for some upgrades in between. So yeah, I'm not signing Max for a long time. I'm signing him for probably the next 2 races at the most, and I'm gonna pray that nothing silly happens. Like Checo gets his act together, and then they're like 4th and 5th, and you're losing value. Like Max has only gotten away this long because Checo's been that bad, like as far as value. So that's my opinion on Max, which I teased a little bit in the Discord last night. Join the Discord. We've got the link pinged if you haven't done that. And be sure and hit like if you're watching. Just throw that out there.
We also, how did I even
I'll-
forget this? If you haven't updated your app yet, we have kind of our own Discord now inside of GridRival called the Paddock. So it's live chat. You can have these conversations actually in app as well. I think great observation around Max's behavior under pressure. You know, I think the last 3 years he's just had a gravy train, and things have been pretty even keel. But I just remember, now that you say it, so many of those circumstances. And then, you know, we saw it a couple races ago with how he was communicating with the team and stuff like that. So I'm all for it. I want to see it. I want to see shake up at the top. I think the last half of the season is going to be really, really exciting to watch. Hopefully, like maybe on par with what we saw in 2021, right? First year of this new car, where you just had really, really close racing the whole or most of the season. If these top three teams can stay even, it's gonna be fun to watch Max under pressure for the last couple events. Andrew Rochette said Ferrari's bringing upgrades, and Vassar anticipates a good result in Zandvoort. Leclerc also been echoing that statement. I think
Didn't they think the last upgrades were going to be good?
Yeah, I mean, my only feedback was going to be, I mean, of course, the people from Ferrari are going to say that the upgrades are going to be good.
And we got these new pieces. They're trash, but we're going to slap them on anyway because we spent the money.
Yeah, for sure. To Michael's point, I think that was I'm going to quote you there. They're just changes until they've been proven. So, all right. Do you think Ferrari is going to start competing? That was the same question. I don't know.
No.
Yeah, it just we'll see. I mean, I don't know. They'd have to bring something great, and that's certainly happened. I mean, remember Zandvoort last year when McLaren showed up and the whole entire season switched around. So, you know, as long maybe Leclerc and Vassar are correct, I wouldn't be betting on it. But
I don't even want Ferrari to be bringing upgrades at this point. I want them to be focusing on next year's car because, I mean, this year is basically lost.
you and Lewis Hamilton both.
Yeah, I mean, like
he's got to be having some buyer's remorse. I feel like.
Yeah,
we'll
like
see.
he's suddenly turned into Daniel Ricciardo. Like make the move at the wrong time.
Yeah,
like,
Shaft 978, 52 million to spend. Norris, Russell, Ricardo, open, and then Williams. Again, great team. Norris and Russell, great. Ricardo, I think is a neutral pick.
He's a serviceable talent driver
for sure.
But you could also do Verstappen, Alonso.
52 million to spend. He's got
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, he also has Williams, which is very inexpensive to drop if you wanted to open something up and consider. Really, I think you'd be doing it to try and grab Mercedes at 22.9. If you drop Williams, if you drop Williams, you basically get 9 million. So your 52 goes to 61. With 61, you could do. If you did
Mercedes for 22, right?
Yeah.
Which would leave us at 39.
He's already got Norris and Russell, so you go Mercedes, Alonso, maybe.
Well, 39. This is after we take Mercedes, so I'm thinking like 39 million for two drivers. Piastri and.
This is a similar question to the last one we did because he's got Norris and Russell already. Yep. So if he picks up Mercedes, Alonso is. I think where you have to be careful with Alonso is attractive right now because he's talent eligible. I would not bet on that lasting very long in our experience, right?
Yeah, he'll either lose talent eligibility or he'll have a bad day, one or the other.
Yeah, for sure.
Mercedes, Verstappen, Bottas. That works. Do a short contract on Verstappen.
Mercedes, Verstappen. Oh, interesting.
I'd rather have Piastri if I'm spending max money. I'd actually rather have Piastri at this point or Hamilton. because I think both of them are faster than Max. I give the slight edge to Hamilton
Yeah,
Sure.
interesting.
in
You do
terms of
Hamilton,
experience.
but if you do Hamilton,
And then
if
all
you-
your eggs are in the Mercedes basket. We'll be clear on that.
yeah, but if you do Hamilton or Piastri, it doesn't get you Magnussen from Bottas.
True.
So
And
you know
also, you
you
compromise your teammate points.
yeah. So you
That's a consideration, but like, you could do that.
yeah,
Like,
you've got a couple avenues to go. You're in a good
Yeah.
position.
Yeah, go Mercedes, and then definitely go Mercedes, and then go good driver, and then the best driver that fits from the back of the grid is what I would do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
And
sure.
and then, like I was hinting at before, make sure as your driver contracts are rolling off in particular, you line up your contract lengths for the end of the season. Who do you want when?
Mm-hmm.
Because like the end is approaching.
Yeah, for sure. Great advice for those that are in it that deep. Will Meany, opinion on Hulkenberg? I think general opinion, handsome guy. I think underestimated. I think this season has shown for sure that Nico Hulkenberg is an underestimated driver. I think he deserves to be uh, in a position where, I mean, he's been really consistent. You look at him compared to, I mean, it's always a tell. I think in Formula One, you're really racing your teammates. So anytime you see it, these large gaps, you know, he's 11th on GridRival, Magnussen's 17th. I don't know where they sit in World Championship points. I can't imagine it's maybe not that much of a spread just because of the way that F1 divvies out points relative to us. But yeah, in terms of
Hulkenberg is on 22 points, Magnussen on 5 points.
mhm.
And well, that's championship points Magnussen has. He has 5 of those, and
Yeah.
he's got like 10 penalty points.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I think though, as a option for the team, you know, he was somebody I looked through when we were going over pricing because he dropped 2 million, and typically, anytime someone drops 2, you know, there's usually an opportunity to grab him. But I actually think Nico Hulkenberg at 15.1 million is priced pretty fair. You know, if he
He's
has a
at
great
his ceiling.
yeah, for sure. Or if not, he's really close. Like he's just so I think like I maybe would be putting him on my team if I have kind of that exact like, you know, 14, 15, 16 million left. I think he's the best non-Alonso option at the top of the best of the rest and for talent driver. I'd probably be adding him over Ricardo if I was choosing between those two just for consistency. I'd probably be adding him over Stroll for consistency, probably not for upside, but I do think he's a great choice for many different reasons. Will Meany, that's about as much as we can give you because you didn't give us much. So if you have any other if you have any other data you want to send us on team or whatever, happy to give you some analysis.
And Hulkenberg is the best driver to never podium. And I think he actually now has the record for most starts without a podium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like to see like I think of him like I thought of Checo before he got the Red Bull seat. Like I'd like to see what he could do in proper equipment.
I agree.
Yeah, and hopefully the Audi will be a decent car when he gets there next year, or more likely in 26, like when they have the new rules package.
Jake Vossen. We're a big fan of your wheels, by the way. Are you the guy from Vossen Wheel Company? Jake needs 2 drivers and a team. Max and Lewis are locked. Already has a Lando, Alonso, Albon. I'm thinking Mercedes, Russell, and Leclerc. Do you think that's good? I'd have 2.5 million left over. Mercedes, Russell, and Leclerc. I like the first 2. Lando and Alonso and Albon.
Okay, so Leclerc is 25.6, and you have 2.5 left over. That would be 28.1.
This guy's got a lot of team value.
He does have a lot of value.
Yeah, Lando. Yeah, I'd be going if I have the 25 for Russell, 2.5, so he can go up to 27.
Like I'm okay with this lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I'm not trying to go for a more expensive driver at that point. I think that's a pretty well-rounded team.
130
And
million
you
team
have,
value says.
and you also have 5 different teams represented on your drivers, and like those are the five of those 5 drivers. Like each one of them is probably the one that's going to score the teammate points from their team.
Mm-hmm.
Like if nothing silly happens, that's a team that could put up some really good numbers. So yeah, I actually really like Jake's idea lineup wise.
Yeah.
He could, I think, if he wanted. Like, I'm just thinking about, the low driver in the totem pole is Albon at 11.8. I wonder if he dropped him, he might have enough with his 2.5 to get up to Sonoda, but I don't know if that's going to be a big,
I don't think
really even
Sonoda is a
worth it.
huge upgrade.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless Sargent really gets his act together, then like Albon is one of those guys who's propped up by his teammate in terms of fantasy points.
Right.
And if Sargent's keeping up with him, then we're having a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we like that one, Jake.
Yeah.
Go with it, man. Let's see. Who would win in a fight, Alonso or Lance Stroll?
Not even
I
close.
would say Lawrence would be the winner of that fight.
I would say Alonso's fans would make quick work of Lance Stroll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the hole at the moment, Michael Harrison. Need 4 drivers and a team. I only have 88 million. That is for sure a tough one. Okay. 88 million, 4 drivers and team. I have Russell for one more race. Norris, see, this is why we've recommended on many occasions not to sign a roster where you have people all at the same length race that all drop off at the same time, because then you have a bunch of options locked out going into an event. So he has Russell on his team for one more race. Norris, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Sargent, and Ferrari are on lockout. Holy smokes.
You know what? There's not a lot of people on that list where I'm saying I really wish I had this guy.
Yeah.
So,
Norris maybe.
So first things first. Mercedes. Sign Mercedes.
Russell.
So that leaves us with 66. And then we start looking at drivers. We need 4 drivers with 66 million.
I would go from the bottom up since he doesn't have that much. I'd be looking at Sargent or Zhou let's start there and see how much wiggle room we have.
Yeah, so it's going to be Zhou. He doesn't have Sargent available.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so 5.1. So he's got 60 million left. We could work with that.
Okay.
Okay, 60 million for 3 drivers.
Yep.
I would say
I'm sorry to break your pattern, but I feel like you got to fill. Russell's got to be on that list. It seems like
he has Russell on his team already.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, for one more race.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking at talent driver now because he's blocked out of Hulk.
Yeah. So I would consider someone of the like Hamilton, Piastri, Norris tier, whoever's best in practice, which is going to be like half of that 60 million almost. I get that. And then probably Alonso, and then whichever other like mid to backpack driver fits.
He could do Alonso Ricardo, Alonso Ricardo Norris, or Piastri Alonso, maybe Norris, but right below right, maybe Ricardo or right below Ricardo, like right around there. That's actually not bad. I think we did pretty good there.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
Garrett Diano, 60. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, we only got about 15 minutes left. So keep them coming if you got them. 67 million to spend. Norris, Alonso, Ricardo signed. Norris, Alonso, Ricardo locked out on Piastri and Albon. Going to sign Russell. Struggling with who to take for driver and constructor with the remaining 44.8. Did he say Mercedes isn't locked at all? I think that's the obvious one, right?
Yeah, Mercedes.
Yep.
Yeah,
which would leave you with
21.9, which gets you
Alonso.
Yeah.
We've got Alonso.
Oh, we got Alonso.
I feel like our recommendations are really skewing Russell, Alonso, Mercedes right now. It's like we're
oh, for sure.
Yeah, we got to start jumping the shark.
Yeah. So like you're gonna end up with some money left over unless you decide to cut somebody. Yeah.
I don't know who would you cut though with Alonso, Norris, Alonso, and Ricardo. I mean, I don't. None of those sound like really cut worthy to me. Like you're going to be doing
Well,
yourself
like
any huge favors.
unless we're gonna go good driver, bad driver.
Yeah.
Because like with that money left over, like after we take Mercedes, we've got like 22 left over, and that doesn't quite get you any of those top tier drivers.
Mm-hmm.
But if we swapped Ricardo for somebody more like well, not Albon, like say, God forbid, Magnussen, uh, or uh, or somebody like the Sergeant Joe tier, like then suddenly we can afford a Piastri or a Hamilton, and that might work out better than some random mid pack driver and Ricardo. Just a thought.
Yeah. That's a tough one as well. Ollie again, 31 million, one seat in a team. Is it better to spend more on a driver or the team? I think it depends on the scenario at 31 million.
Yeah, generally, like a team can increase or decrease in value more than an individual driver. So if you could spot value on the team side, it could be better to spend or not spend on the team side. That's kind of how I look at it there. But a driver can generate more points than a team. So if you're
Yeah,
going for points, you got to go spend the money on the driver.
even more so when you have sprints, which like
Yes.
we're five races away from the next sprint. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Let's see. Oh, Bezowit. What is this? I thought this guy already asked us here. Okay. Jake Vossen, not the Vossen wheel guy. Bummer. It's all right.
Steve wondering thoughts on the RB drivers. Uh, yeah, I'm surprised that they're both driving the RBs. Like I would have thought one of them would have replaced Checo,
Mm-hmm.
and I also wonder how long Ricardo's going to hang around on that team. In terms of our fantasy game, I would say they're fairly solid mid-pack drivers. They could both they could both potentially be the best talent driver on a given week if the chips fall the right way. Like neither of them's a really terrible choice if you're looking at signing one of them. Like I give the slight edge to Sonoda just because he's on discount. He did have a bad race at Spa, but if they have the pace, and that's the key thing. Like if they look like a disaster in Friday, forget it.
Yeah.
In Friday practice, forget it. But yeah.
Okay. Danny Cam, almost a total reset, 90.5 to spend. He has McLaren. He needs 5 drivers. Norris, Russell, Alonso, Ricardo, and Bottas are all locked. So this is the we can't give our standard advice for the call on this one.
Put this one in Discord. There's a lot of workshopping that would need to be done here.
This might be a paid actor who's trying to break our show. I don't know. Anyway,
put that in the Paddock channel on the GridRival app or in Discord and see what feedback you get. But okay, so let's think this. Thinking Piastri, Sainz, Hulk. I like Hulk. I like Piastri. I feel neutral about Sainz. K-Meg and Albon are Bush.
I would be inclined to swap like Albon or Magnussen for somebody like Sargent, and then go for Hamilton in one of those spots, like instead of Sainz. I like Hamilton way better than Sainz.
Yeah, for sure. I do too. Yeah, I think it'd be worth getting Hamilton to have Sargent instead of Bottas. Like I just think your upside is way bigger there. All right, 10 minutes left. Only a couple more here. Lewis, per year, I have Piastri, Sainz, Russell, and Stroll. I need one driver and a constructor, 33 million. Sainz, Russell, Stroll, 31.
Give me Mercedes and give me whoever you can afford, like the best driver you can afford after that.
Yeah, Mercedes leaves
Mercedes
him
is
with
just such a massive discount, and they're a team that can double podium. I know we keep saying Mercedes. They feel, unless something really wild happens in practice, they feel like the obvious choice.
Yep.
Like they're going to get you a lot of points, probably, and they will therefore give you a nice bump in value as long as the cars weigh the correct amount after the race.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that option because if he gets Mercedes, he can't get Magnussen, but I think he can get up to Bottas. So we need the last 3.
For the record, Sargent is above Bottas in the championship right now. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Yep. Vic, I need 3 drivers and constructor. I have Lando and Max. 55.2 million. Russell, Stroll, or Bottas locked out. Give me your best. 3 drivers and a constructor for 55 million. That's tight. That feels tight to me. I wonder if his
Okay.
well, Lando and Max, so he's got a pretty stacked top already.
Yeah. So again, Mercedes is a possibility. We could look at. Okay, you have.
I
you've
like
got
Mercedes
Norris and
because
you
he's
got
locked out of Russell, so that's kind of a way to maybe get on the upside
Yeah, that's
there.
the next best thing. So if we take Mercedes, then that leaves us with 33 million, and at that point, you're looking at the mid pack. You're looking down the order.
I mean, at 33, 33 is what's left. You could do again. We could do Alonso, and then
yeah, Alonso's not a bad choice.
yeah, I think Mercedes, Alonso, and then what? Bottas. Probably not enough for K Mag again. Same situation.
He needs 3 drivers. So and constructors. So 33 million for 3 drivers. That's where it's tricky. That's where I'm thinking more like maybe Sonoda, Albon, and then like Sargent or Joe. Like it's slim pickings. Like Max is like such an anchor as far as like sucking up your team value.
Yeah, for sure.
But he's also super expensive to drop. I really hope you have him rolling off soon.
Mm-hmm. Schwack, when will you bring back guaranteed? I'm assuming PP means prize pool contests. We are shooting for next race,
Monaco,
right? Monza.
Yeah.
So that's our goal. So he should be coming back. For those of you not in the United States, he's referring to some of our paid entry games that we have. Jeanette Peters, the conspiracy that Red Bull doesn't want to drop Checo until after the Mexican GP. The fans would be too pissed and Red Bull would lose a lot of support.
That was one of the conspiracies.
Yeah.
There was another one where
very
a
valid
wealthy
one.
Mexican individual wrote them a big check. And then there was the conspiracy that Liberty Media begged them to keep Perez. So, you don't lose the TV audience in that regard.
I mean, that
Yeah,
Carlos
there's a
Slim
lot
money.
of conspiracies.
Yeah, for sure. Only there's a lot of economic value to having Checo in Formula One, like huge.
Yeah, it's just not going to be from winning the Constructors Championship, just not that economic value.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of economic value to F1, not to Red Bull, I'll say. Yeah, I mean, if you go to Mexico, it's just like he's everywhere. Billboards, just everything. I mean, it's just such a huge presence there. So, okay. Anything else? Are we done? Okay, we got a couple. Kevin Clark, I have 71.8. We need 3 drivers. I have George and Danny Rick. Okay. 78. You don't need a constructor, doesn't sound like. Wait, this guy's got. Okay, never mind. Need 3 drivers. We're going to assume that you don't have that you already have a constructor because you didn't tell us. But 3 drivers for 71.8 shouldn't be hard.
No.
He's got George and Danny already, so I'm going Norris for sure.
Norris for sure. And then
he has a constructor, he just said.
And Hamilton, if you did Norris and Hamilton, that uses 56.5, which would leave you not enough for Alonso.
And does he have Hulk? No.
You can get Hulk.
Yeah, I like that.
Doable.
Yeah.
I mean, who would you
Yeah,
add
you
other
could
than
do
Hulk?
that.
Like, I don't see
And
anybody.
yeah.
I don't think there's any value in saving the money and going with like Ricardo, Sonoda, any of the
Yeah.
ones below him. So
And I don't know who your constructor is, but I assume you're happy enough that you wouldn't consider swapping them for Mercedes, or maybe they are Mercedes. It's like
yeah,
if we have this kind of budget, like that's also a possibility. Like maybe we have a constructor we like. Oh, he has Williams. Okay,
okay, all
so
right, switch it up.
so dropping Williams from Mercedes is also a consideration, and then you'll get less top heavy on the driver's side. Like maybe you don't have Hamilton anymore at that point, like we will further down. But I think Mercedes
Yeah, because
is.
he's already got Russell, so
Yeah.
he could. Yeah, I actually like that better.
Yeah, I'd
Dropping
rather have
Williams.
Russell Mercedes than Russell Hamilton.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
agree. Okay, cool. I think last one here, with perfect timing at 10:56 a.m. Pacific. We got Keith Gravely, 55.5 million to spend for 4 drivers. He's got Lando, McLaren, Lance, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, and Logan are locked. Oh, he's sorry. He has Lando and McLaren, Lance, Hulkenberg, and Magnussen, and Logan are locked. So
Yeesh.
he's got pretty good coverage with McLaren. Definitely wouldn't recommend Piastri, right?
Yeah, and that's also way too much budget if we're trying to make this stretch over 4 drivers. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, assuming we're keeping Lando and McLaren, we're probably looking at Alonso, which is going to eat like a third of that, and then we're
I
just trying
mean,
to make it work after that.
we definitely got to throw Russell in, right?
55. Can we swing? Okay, we can swing Russell.
Russell gets you down
22.2.
to,
That would leave us with 33.3 for 3 drivers. And then you're basically dictated like the rest of the lineup. It'll be Albon, Botas, and Joe because everyone else is locked that you could afford.
like that pick.
Yeah, but like you're putting all your eggs in one basket with that lineup. Whereas if you went for a one, yeah, and Russell's such a discount, it's hard to justify not going for Russell. Uh, if you wanted more diversification, I'd look at something where you're pairing Alonso and someone like Sonoda.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the thoughts.
Okay. That brings us to the end, right on time. We appreciate everybody joining. It's glad to be back after the break. We don't like breaks in racing, but it's always nice. But we're happy to see Formula One back on track. Hopefully, it is an exciting event like it was last year. We appreciate you all joining. We appreciate you using the app and continue to be fans of GridRival. Make sure to invite your friends. That's the best thing you can do to help us grow. Update the app to get the paddock, which is in-app chat where you can chat with any other user on GridRival about anything, hopefully racing related. But we're all glad to have you again. Thanks for coming. We will see you next week to discuss Monza, right?
Yeah, Monza's up next.
Awesome. Cool, guys. Thanks so much. Enjoy the weekend, and we will see y'all soon.